Okay, I'm curious. I see this account all the time. Dr. Disaster. Oh my God. How do people like you click on your subscription box and you come and you just see this. You just see this and you're like, I want this. I want this. Why is Hassan on the cover of the Tomb Raider one? Who knows? But you're like, yeah, I want this. I want thumbnails that are just disgusting to look at with a bunch of random text, random unrelated people using the yelling feminist lady from fucking 40 years ago, like from the Trump inauguration from the first Trump inauguration, using the red hair lady. It's like, what are we? What? This is, and it's like, look at this 13-minute video. Assassin's Creed Shadows nominated for LGBTQ organization game of the year. Why does that matter? And listen to this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Gamers reject this slop. Code Violet. PS5 first console exclusive 2026 flops. The modern audience. You know what? For old time's sake, let's do a quick react video. Let's do a quick react video.
What's up, space pirates? This is your admiral, the charmingly churlish.
Oh, my browser does not want me to do this. My browser is like, hey, don't do this to yourself, actually. But they have to continue this. Like, oh, well, the modern audience. Yeah, this game is made for the modern audience. Like, I'm going to show you if I can. Jesus Christ.
Dr. Disaster. And it used to be that being a console exclusive.
You're telling me that, look at the character's design, right? You're telling me this was made for the modern audience. When they say the word modern audience, they literally are talking about, oh, you woke activists, you trans people, you queers, you woke people, right? You guys hate sexy, like literally. It's these losers talking about, oh, where the fuck is the modern audience? Because they're not supporting this queer game. Oh, where's the modern audience? You're not supporting these games. Gamers can't stop winning. The modern audience is gaming got destroyed. Right? Chinese developer on how the modern audience creeps are trying to take over gaming. So the modern audience is a negative thing, right? Modern audience slop, high guard destroyed. Again, like this is their take on this. This is the same person. 007's First Light was made for modern audience. IO Interactive are feminist tourists of the IP. What the fuck? Well, anyways, so this is establishing that, right? This is them, the Roach King, modern audience. Why updating from modern audience is a terrible idea. From Endymion. Again, all the grifters are talking about the modern audience. I want that to really sink in. And I'm going to show you Code Violet. Do you think this was made for the modern audiences who hate sexy characters? Or is this made for like the gooner chuds who think all you need is a woman with skin tight suit and boobies and make sure that you see her butt and the back of everything? Whom do you think this game was geared towards? Look at every fucking image of this. Every image is of her backside in full view, no matter what. Like this was not a game made for their interpretation of the modern audience. So let's look at the IGN review first. And then we'll go to back to the video.
Folks, right up top. Code Violet is a bad game. If you saw tasteful and sometimes not screenshots and
yeah, this is the game for the woke crowd, you guys. This is the game for the modern audience. Again, when I say modern audience, I'm talking about their perception of them. This is the game for the people who hate sexy women and nudity and want everything to be woke and gay and trans and hate this, and this is bad, right? We're the woke audience who hate Estella Blade because Eve too sexy. That's what they were saying with modern audience, right?
Trailers of its beautiful brunette protagonist mixing it up with dinosaurs and felt compelled to pick this up just to ogle. No judgment, some judgment, but if you want something else from Code Violet, like a compelling story with interesting characters, or an engrossing crucible of tense and savvy action horror to conquer, then you've come to the wrong raptor-infested space station. The best it can give you is terrible third-person shooting, boring level design, and technical blunders that make stalking through this futuristic bloodbath feel prehistoric.
Okay, so just not good.
Space colonization, genetic modification, and more to make this final girl survival story as impenetrable as possible.
Where am I?
Home.
Bits and pieces of the tale
Saying that this is somehow the modern audience abandoning
was a
this.
prestigious title, which meant that a game was going to be.
Wait, hold on. Let me restart this because I did freeze in the beginning.
What's up, space pirates? This is your admiral, the charmingly churlish Dr. Disaster. And it used to be that being a console exclusive was a prestigious title, which meant that a game was going to be.
Also, yes, this does kind of give me Hades vibes. Not Hades, the Supergiant games, but Hades, the robot game with the thick lady, which I did in fact do a video on years ago when I started this channel. I do have Hades gameplay.
Gameplay good. We used to have games like Final Fantasy VII or Halo or Uncharted. Those were all console exclusive, and they were used as a means of persuading gamers to buy a particular console because you weren't going to be able to play them otherwise, and they were of such high.
You could have played Halo and Final Fantasy VII at that point when Halo was out on PC, by the way. Just letting you know. You could have played Final Fantasy VII on PC. Yeah, it came out in 1998. So like a year after Final Fantasy VII came out on PS1, you could have played the game on the PC. So just saying.
High quality that you didn't want to miss out.
Shut up and take my money.
But now we apparently have console exclusives just because the developers of a game are complete and total jackasses.
Also, to be fair, you had console exclusives back in the day that were also bad games. Like, I don't want to do a revisionist history here. Like, yeah, they were great console exclusive, but there are also console exclusives that sucked. It's always been the case. Like, that's just true.
Which brings me to this game right here, Code Violet, a game that advertised itself as being a spiritual successor to Dino Crisis, which sounds like a good idea. That sounds like something that I would want to try out. But they got a lot of attention some time ago when they announced that their game was going to be released exclusively on PS5, and the reason for that wasn't because they had reached some sort of deal with PlayStation. It was because the idiots who made the game did not want vulgar mods of their main character's actress to be made on PC.
Well, boy, your mama must be damn proud of you.
Ultimately, I think this was just a ploy to bring attention to themselves. They were
Okay, so like I will sort of agree with what he's saying, because I do also believe that if I remember correctly, the company behind this had already released like a terrible game, and so because Team Kill released the game before, and this probably didn't review well, it didn't do that good, mediocre, right? So I think like that played a part of it too. I believe there was something else with Quantum Error where they either like abandoned it midway through or something like along those lines. And I guess I could just look it up here.
were virtue signaling to the feminists that they respect women.
Whoa. Did I miss a chapter? For those asking about PC versions, the reason we're not bringing PCs, we don't want anyone modding vulgar versions of main characters as well as other characters in the game. We hold our voice actresses and actors with high regard and as our artistic vision of the game and story, and reject any form of destroying that with sexual mods. Making a joke out of our art and possibly tarnish reputation of our voice actors and actors is not worth the extra money we can make. So again, this to me seems more of like a, hey, people weren't asking about this, but we're going to make it so people are asking about it to draw attention to ourselves. So it's kind of weird to be like, your interpretation, Dr. Disaster, is they're doing this to appease the feminist. Like, that's something I always find hilarious with these guys. They believe so many groups of people are into the same media that they're into. Like, yes, they want to appease the feminists because feminist TM were saying, you better not put this game on PC because we don't like games on PC because people can mod it and make it sexual. No.
To be made on P. I think this was just a ploy to bring attention to themselves. They were virtue signaling to the feminists that they respect women. Meanwhile, because of their decision to only release on the PS5, they can technically call themselves a console exclusive, which makes it sound like they are a much bigger deal than they actually are. But the game is out now, the reviews are in, and after only an hour or so of playing, even DSP couldn't stand this turd of a game and deleted it off of his console.
But you could get far, like, this is just, there is no reason to bother with this.
Agreed.
And hell, even the likes of IGN scored this thing as a dumpster fire. We're gonna have a look at how badly this thing is scored.
By the way, I always find it's completely funny. Like, people like this who very clearly have a vendetta against professionals in the industry, like game reviewers, game review sites, what have you, will still refer to them as like a North Star of things. You know what I mean? Like, you mentioned before that the reviews were in there bad. Why do you care about reviews? Aren't game journalists cucks? Like, aren't they the woke industry that's making games like this to begin with, or hates games like this? Like, there's just no consistency here. And also, there are a ton of PS5 exclusives that are dog shit. Like, this being dog shit isn't indicative of the nature of where current console exclusives are.
Scoring, because it sounds like we might have a legitimate candidate for the worst game of 2026 released already.
I'm the champion of failures.
Ding, ding, ding. What do we have for her, Johnny?
Teaser warning. Let me just...
For full context,
skip to that.
though, let's take a look at the virtue signals that these wankers put out over at Team Kill Media, the developers of Code Violet. They wrote here on X.
Didn't you just do this? Am I tweaking? Was this not... Didn't we already cover this?
For those asking us about a piece we do not want as
we already did that.
Reject out of our art, and look at this video that I have right now playing in the background here. This is content from the actual game. They have a fitting room for their character where you can put on all kinds of different outfits, some of them being quite skimpy. So it sure as hell seems like there is more to their decision than simply wanting to protect the modesty of their actor. If you ask me, like I said earlier, I think they were fishing for virtue signal points. I think they were trying to attract the modern audience.
Okay, this is... Hey, man. So I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? I don't know if you're going to see this video or not, Dr. Disrespect or Dr. Disaster, whatever. That's not virtue signaling. Like, it's... Like, if this is the character in your game, then they aren't virtue signaling. Because in your estimation, they don't want people to modify their game character because they respect women. But if this is in their game, then obviously that's not the case. Right? This isn't... They weren't virtue signaling. They were drumming up attention. That's what they were doing. That's not a virtue signal, though. Like, especially if that's already in the game. That's not virtue signaling.
This is content from the actual game. They have a fitting room for their character, where you're opting to protect the modesty of their actor. If you ask me, like I said earlier, I think they were fishing for virtue signal points. I think they were trying to attract the modern audience. But that didn't work out for them very well, and also, I think this was very strategic. They knew that if they put their game on Steam, then the Steam charts would clearly show how poorly they were performing, and they didn't want to suffer from that embarrassment, and also, by going with only the PS5.
Okay, so I want to point out something he just did here. He did, imagine these are keys. These are just the batteries. He was jingling the keys. I want you to listen to the in-between when he says this is for the modern audience, right? So this part here.
Trying to attract the modern audience.
So that is in between this portion here.
Is not look at this video that I have right now playing in the background here. This is content from the actual game. They have a fitting room for their character where you can put on all kinds of different outfits.
So he's talking about the fitting room where you can put on revealing outfits, right? That would run contrary to his interpretation of them wanting to use for virtue signaling points, because in reality they have this. Okay, and then we have this portion here,
audience,
right here.
That didn't work out for them very well, and also.
This part right here, listen to this.
I think this was very strategic. They knew that if they put their game on Steam, then the Steam charts would clearly show how poorly they were performing, and they didn't want to suffer from that embarrassment. And also, by going with only the PS5, they could use this console exclusive. Okay, so what Dr. Disaster is doing here is key jingling, because, and you guys know me, I give credit where credit's due. If his point is, I'm going to cut out the part about the modern audience because it's fucking stupid. But his point outside of that was, I believe them to be disingenuous because they're saying they don't want to tarnish the reputation of the voice actors to protect their integrity in their art, but they're also already having what could be considered sexual or sexy costumes within the game already. And then on top of that, they didn't put this on Steam because if they was on Steam, people could look at the Steam charts and see if no one's playing, it's not doing well, etc., etc. Even though this doesn't really understand consent, that in itself isn't a bad take. If you believe that they are being disingenuous for those reasons, and then also saying that, and they wanted to hide the fact that this game was not going to do well, I could still argue against that, but that's way more solid than what he did, which was say that here, and then in the middle go, and this was for the modern audience. Like that right there is for his audience. That's why he titled this the modern audience abandoned Code Violet, right? I think even in his heart, he knows this has nothing to do with this bullshit culture war. But these people are so enraptured by having to consistently tie it back to it that they are literally forcing it into an argument that was honestly fairly solid on its own, but now making it weaker. Moniker like a camouflage and make themselves sound more important than they actually are.
Because now he's talking about how they attach themselves to PS5 as an exclusive to give them more prestige, which is possibly true. But it gets ruined when you say shit like this.
But that didn't attract the fishing for virtue signal points. I think they were trying to attract the modern audience.
Because why would that attract the modern audience? Like, why would that? Like, we could still see. This would be different if there were like, there's no footage of this game and they're like, hey, we're going to make this game and we're going to make our characters more believable, more real, which means we're not going to put them in impractical outfits in order to like appeal to a certain demographic. Then you could say, yes, they're fishing for they're fishing for points for virtue signaling. But that's not what happened. That's not what he said. So he just shoehorns this in randomly.
camouflage and make them is that this was a fairly devious and calculated decision, but it won't help because as you can see here, the game just isn't any good. Oh, and did I mention by
Okay, but 4 critics, granted, it's already at 40, but 4 critics isn't a lot. Like, you could drop a game's percentage pretty easily with only 4 people's critiques.
By the way, that they have the audacity to charge $50 for this slop, or you could spend $60 for the deluxe edition, which comes with a soundtrack and some skimpy outfits for your character. So much for not wanting to sexualize their character. But anyhow, as you can see here.
Okay, I have to say this though, because this has been on my mind because of what's happening with Grok and shit. There is a thing called consent. And consent is not just, hey, can we bone? Yes, thank you. Consenting is, let's say, for example, the actress who works on this, who played Violet, whatever, let's say they body scanned her. And they were like, here are all the outfits we're going to put you in. Do you agree to this? She says, yes. Okay. She consents to that. So even if they're sexy, it is something that they wanted to put in their game for, as according to them, artistic reasons. And people consented to that. But they didn't consent to making a mod where you make her titties 3,000 times bigger. Now, most people won't care because, again, the bodies aren't really modeled off of them. But, like, that's what I'm getting at when you're like, oh, well, these characters are sexy anyways. The whole thing wasn't that they didn't want the characters to be sexy. They said vulgar. And their definition of vulgar might just be, we don't want you guys running around with nude mods, essentially, in our game. Which is not for me defending this game, but I want to give more perspective onto that. At least that part of it.
On Metacritic, the game only has 4 reviews on it so far because most outlets do not feel like this is even worth their time. But as you can see, those 4 reviews are not favorable at all. They have a Metacritic score of 40, which seems generous.
You're repeating
based
yourself.
on the gameplay that I have seen for this turd. Not even the game journalists will defend it. Let's take a look at their reviews though and see what they have to say. The outlet Game 8 gave this title its highest score.
I've never heard of Game 8. But again, with the whole, like, even the games journalists won't defend that. Do people still not understand the role of games journalists? It is just an opinion. And admittedly, some of them are not the best, but it's just people who have a certain pedigree who play these games and then give their interpretations of it. That's it. And games journalists are not the same as games reviewers. A games journalist would be like Jason Schreier, right? Who have to, like, get sources, who have to do follow-up on stories, who have to corroborate things. A game reviewer just reviews the game. And that's a different literature. That's different language they have to use. Like, okay, games journalist would be the one who exposes the situations at Team Kill Media in order to find out why this game was what it was. It came out so badly. That's what a games journalist would do. A game reviewer would just be like, this game sucks. It fails to meet the standards, even do a decent job of representing the action horror survival genre. Its weak gunplay, baffling art direction, and rough animations, and even more confusing plot serve as a reminder that maybe something should be left untouched. That is a reviewer. So a games journalist and a games reviewer are not the same thing. And I'm being pedantic, but it bothers me so much.
A 42 out of 100, and they wrote here as the self-proclaimed
Yeah, okay, I just read that.
rough that station. I would actually be really pissed that these idiots decided to call themselves a console exclusive. It doesn't matter to those of us who know better, but you have posts like this one here from the Gameverse over on X saying, this is the first PS5 exclusive for 2026, launching tomorrow. Like I said, I would be pissed if I were PlayStation, because this is tarnishing their brand.
Okay, that's such an extreme take. This is not tarnishing their brand. Get fucking real, man. There was like Life of Black Tiger that came out in 2017. You're still playing PlayStation games. They're going to survive this. You want to know why? Because no one cares about this. No one cares about this. No one knew Code Violet came out. There's a reason why it was dropped in early January. with little to no fanfare. No one cared. That's why they made that post talking about their character to get some attention. No one cares about this. This is not going to tarnish their brand. I think he's trying to put more oomph on it, but it's not landing.
But I digress. Anyhow, the second review was from Push Square, who
I don't like when people just read the shit that's on screen unless it's like a Q&A thing, so they're helping you guys see it. But like you can read. Like you don't have to hear someone read this to you. I feel like that's just there to pass the time for the video.
need to justify what's currently on your screen. It's funny how literally nobody is happy about this game, and not even for gameplay reasons. The so-called gamer chuds were never going to get behind this game once they tried to virtue signal to the wokesters out there and said that the game wasn't coming out on PC because they were being game itself.
So you're just repeating
as they
yourself.
said in this review, is absolutely brimming with sexualized content, meaning that these are just hypocrites. And of course, the game journalists were going to roast them. They were always going to roast them for having stuff like this in their game. You know, there are some people out there who try to play both sides of an argument.
Wait.
They were always the game itself, as they said in this review, is absolutely brimming with sexualized content, meaning that these are just hypocrites. And of course, the game journalists were going to roast them. They were always going to roast them for having stuff like this in their game.
All right, so this is kind of contradictory, right? Your title of your video is saying the audience, the modern audience, abandoned this game. You also just said that games journalists were always going to roast them for having that stuff in there. But, what you mean is game reviewers, but the reviews that you went over did not talk about that at all. In fact, the IGN video I briefly saw just mentioned that if you want to play this game because you're sexy characters and you're a gooner, they're like, no judgment, and then a little joke, a little judgment, right? No one ever fucking says that the issue with the game is that the characters are too attractive. What's always been the case was people analyzing it through the lens of agency. Does it make sense? Does it make sense for this person who's living in like fucking Siberia to be wearing a bikini year round? No, it doesn't. This is just to get players horny or whatever, right? That is very different than saying characters shouldn't be sexy. Characters shouldn't be attractive. That was never the argument. And again, this is another shoehorn situation because he's put himself in a corner where he has to say, well, the chuds weren't going to play this game because they tried to virtue signal. And then the journalists were just always going to hate this game because it was sexy. Well, if it was sexy, then the chuds were going to play it because the chuds played sexy games and the game journalists hate sexy. But the game journalists played this game in order to review it. And they didn't talk about it being sexy or not. So now he's going to talk about, well, people are going to try to play both sides of the argument, which is what he's doing.
You know, there are some people out there who try to play both sides of an argument so that they can win no matter what. But these absolute morons at Team Kill Media decided to essentially pick a fight with both sides of the culture war.
But how are they picking a fight with both sides? Like, this is your projection. You're saying they were trying to get virtue signal points, but then you're also saying they were picking a fight against the woke side of the game joint because they have sexy characters. But no one cares about the character being sexy. In fact, that's the only thing the character possibly has going for them because the game sucks. People, like I said in my video, talking about you guys being better haters, people do not care about this to the level that people like him think people care about it. Like I've always said, this shit is immaterial when you're talking about an actual game because you have scenes where her ass is front and center. She's wet. She's wearing skin tight outfits and the game is garbage. People don't like it because this adds nothing. It adds nothing to the gameplay, to the story. This is what I'm talking about when I tell you guys doing this shit is pointless. When people go like, oh, the reason why this game failed is because the characters were woke and ugly. Okay, why did this game fail? Oh, because they were virtue signaling? No, it's because the game was not good. And just having characters with big, nice butts does not bring people to the table and keep them there. That's the thing I keep trying to drive home. It doesn't matter how shiny you make something. If there is no substance there, people are going to leave. It doesn't matter how pretty the restaurant is. If there's no food, no one's eating, everyone's starving.
Decided to essentially pick a fight with both sides of the culture war so that nobody likes them. The level of retardation required to achieve this feat is so staggeringly high that it's no wonder that their game sounds like absolute trash. The other two reviews of the game, as you can see here, also gave it a 40 out of 100.
Yes.
A step removed, a small step at that, from being shovelware. And I'd like to think that this video might serve as a PSA for people out there so that you don't get suckered by any of the game's trailers. But anyways, me hearties,
the game trailer didn't look good, but this is, again, his wrap up is lacking. It's lacking a lot because his interpretation of this is the reason why the game didn't do well, even though he is showing the game doesn't look good. And there's reviews talking about its controls and how the story is weak and all that shit. He's saying it didn't do well because they try to play both sides. People don't fucking care about this cultural war unless you're chronically online or you're the CEO of CI Games who are doing Lords of the Fallen and Lord of the Fallen 2. Outside of that, people don't care. The people who bought this game on a whim weren't buying it because they're like, I know this is going to make TTBN Gaming fume because he hates sexy women. They bought the game because they're like, oh, cool, a hot chick and dinosaurs, I'm in. And then they played the game and they're like, oh, this is actually dog water. It's not doing well because it had little to no marketing. It cost way too much for an IP that no one knows about. It looks very generic. And on top of that, the reviews, which the purpose of reviews is shit like this, mind you, to inform people what the game is about. If we go back to that IGN review, you know, we won't watch the video of the IGN review. We're gonna watch. Stop this. We're gonna briefly go over the IGN review for Code Violet. So I want to see something. Let me level with you folks. I know I said I don't keep doing this, but I'm reading this for you guys for a reason. Let me level with you folks up top. Code Violet's a bad game. No judgment, some judgment if you saw tasteful and sometimes not screenshots and trailers featuring its beautiful brunette protagonist, mixing it up with dinosaurs, and felt compelled to pick it up to Oogle. But if you want anything else from Code Violet, like a compelling story with interesting characters and engrossing and crucible of tense and savvy action horror to conquer, then you come to the wrong raptor-infested space station. The best he can give you is terrible third-person shooting, boring level design, and technical blunders that make stalking through this futuristic bloodbath feel prehistoric. Now, what about just this initial paragraph matches with what good old Dr. Disaster was talking about? Are the game's journalists upset that the character is too sexy and that's why they were always going to give it a low score? Or is it because this shit is boring and all they have to offer you is a character to oogle or ogle or look at? That's what I mean when I say they are projecting and they're making shit up. No one's review, or at least no one credible has a review up where like the game's bad because the characters are too hot. I've never seen a review like that. I've seen opinion pieces where they talk about how focusing so much on the character's sexuality or sensuality over gameplay is bad. I've seen them talking about when they're doing Stellar Blade and they're saying, hey, Eve has no agency, so her wearing these outfits and she's not aware of her sexiness kind of has a disconnect, which makes it more for the player and less for a narrative speaking, whereas a character like Bayonetta who's in on it, it makes it much more enjoyable. I've seen stuff like that, but I've never seen the shit they're talking about. Oh yeah, this is like going back to this video to be like, oh yeah, this is the modern audience abandoning Code Violet. The modern audience had nothing to do with this. This would be a game that the modern audience hated. And he just threw that in there to get his audience riled up. Like, let's just look. Modern audience are the same people who attend Somali learning centers in Minneapolis. It's the modern audience in which is now. Like, Jesus Christ, NPCs, right? NPCs. The modern audience in the balance game, all of them bought it, all 4 of them. The modern audience is truly a Phantom Menace. Where's the modern audience? Oh, there's nowhere to be found. They don't play games and don't exist. Like, this is the shit. Like, this is, and then people would say, I have an echo chamber. Me, that I have an echo chamber. The modern audience, the modern audience, the modern audience. How many times would we tell everyone the modern audience don't play video games and they still want to charge us for that expensive price? Who is they? Is Team Kill Media the modern audience? God, sometimes I feel like fucking Cassandra, dude. Just cursed to forever speak truth that no one listens to. This is his whole shtick too, right? Like every video of his is like modern audience or something along the lines, right?